From the deserts east of the Caspian to the halls of Byzantium, Islam was not born of gods, but crafted by the hands of men. What began as philosophy from wisdom to worship, from thoughts, an idea was forged that would one day become Islam. This is not the story of prophets or saints, but those who shaped belief into power and turned men's words into the words of God. In the halls of empire, Theodora ruled beside Justinian, her word law, her will the empire's reach. When Harith ibn Gabala came before her, he asked for a teacher to bring the outer lands into one faith. So Theodora sent Jacob Baradaeus beyond the double-walled city to shape a people into the Monophysite way. His followers carried his lessons across the lands, and over time they became known as the Jacobites, the believers in one nature, one form, one rule. The European Arab Monophysites, whom Baradaeus reached, kept the teaching of a single spiritual nature, one divine essence. From these roots, the idea of the one evolved again, through Arianism, through Monophysitism, and at last into the monist systems later called Mohammedanism. What the world would know as Islam began as an inheritance of that same ancient logic, the belief that all being was one and indivisible. The highlands east of the Caspian, new tribes began to move west. They crossed mountains and rivers, seeking new lands and meaning. Through the passes of Iran they came, the east walking toward empire. Steel and faith clashed. The gates of empire fell to the rising east. By the year 1171, Indo-European tribes from the regions of Afghanistan, Turkestan, the Caucasus, and the Caspian Plains moved westward into the lands of the Byzantine frontier. These migrating peoples would come to be known as Arabs, not by descent, but by direction. The rising Arabs moved westward toward the heart of Byzantine. In 1096, the first Crusaders were called, summoned to halt the tide of the Indo-European rise that threatened to consume the West. They entered through Iran and pressed into Byzantine lands, reshaping borders and beliefs as they came. Though they shared the land, their tongues were divided. No single word united them. In the empire's shadow, new settlers learned old ways, yet none spoke the same tongue. From the far west came a Moorish seeker named Ibn al-Arabi, drawn to reason more than rule. In Seville, under the guidance of Fatima of Córdoba, he learned that the world moves by design, and that knowledge itself could rule as kings do. He wrote of these truths in two great works, Fusus al-Hikam, the Book of Wisdom, and al-Futuhat al-Makkiyah, the Revelations of Makaraba. Within them he described the journey of the mind toward unity, the mapping of spirit into order, and the hierarchy of creation. Around the year 1200, Ibn al-Arabi left Spain and journeyed eastward. He crossed the Mediterranean and reached Egypt, then passed through the ancient trade city of Makaraba, known under the Ptolemies as the heart of Arabia's desert routes. Wherever Ibn al-Arabi traveled, he practiced a ritual he created, a symbolic pilgrimage he called the pilgrimage of the Hajj. He poured water into a circle and walked around it, casting stones and reciting verses to represent the release of human imperfection. There was no Islam in his time, only the remnants of early Christianity and the Monophysite belief in one divine nature. From those roots, Arabi's ritual philosophy evolved into Monist Mohammedanism, and later, the religion the world would call Islam. By 1239, his followers carried his teachings further east, scrolls and notes crossing deserts, reaching the Turkish lands once ruled by the Seljuks. The next year, Ibn al-Arabi was gone. His body remained in Syria, but his words kept moving. In those same lands, a new power began to rise, men who lived where the Seljuks had ruled. They were called the Ottomans, and the world would come to call them Turks. They took his ideas of divine order and earthly law, shaping them into a creed of rule, spreading Mohammedism through power and decree. The The Seljuks fell not by treaty, but by time. Osman took their lands, their laws, their legacy, and made them his own. From conquest came order. From order came a name, Ottoman, the sons of Osman. Their dominion spread, and the world called it a new name, Turkey, the land of the Turks. Ibn al-Arabi's philosophy became their decree. Lines of ink turned to law. Law became faith, and faith obedience. The city of stone bowed to the seal of order. Constantinople was no more. The empire sealed its creed in wax and blood. Muhammad or die was their slogan. In order to keep your life, Muhammad was the name you repeated back to the extremist. The world turned under its mark. Yet even as power spread, the tongues of Arabia still spoke in 100 ways. In time, men would say the land itself took the name of the philosopher. Arabia, from Ibn al-Arabi, whose words bound no nation yet shaped them all. The empire held the world in order, but the tongues beneath it spoke 100 ways. From this silence, the next age would be written. The Crest had ruled for centuries, its mark upon every law and tongue. From beyond the sea, the British came, not in battle, but in curiosity, to watch, to study, to learn what this world of Mohammedanism had become. The age of an empire was ending, while the beginning of one was about to start. Stay tuned for part 2 when we show how Mohammedanism became what's known today as Islam.